and trying to use the standing of it affected his zoning, which
They were redefining the zone is what they were doing.
right, but that was also prior to a special, it was about 3 weeks prior to a special town meeting.
Correct.
So we were at it was a much more compressed timeline, so I think that we're.
And
Here's the other
so
issue, though.
once-
Yeah.
Of these citizens petitions, 1, 2, 3 of them are a citizen's petition by a member of the planning board who cannot present himself before the planning board. And therefore, I think it's invalid to even hold a public hearing because he cannot present his own citizen's petition before the board he's on.
Can he ever present
Just like
it by
a board of
someone else?
selectmen cannot come here on his own and present to you, I don't believe he's allowed to do that.
Can he ever present?
Because he's on the board, you would work with the board to develop it. You would not create a separate bylaw and request the board to present it on your behalf.
Can the petitioner have a presenter on his behalf? First question.
I would just like to double check because of that
And-
conflict of
and-
interest concern.
And I stand behind my belief that we need to reread this process, because my takeaway from this last time was the 10 signatures doesn't force it to the warrant. To a zoning bylaw change, all the 10 signatures can do is force us to begin the process. I believe it doesn't hit the warrant unless we agree to place it on the warrant, because it's our warrant, and that comes after we get the recommendation from the planning board. So my belief was.
I think it has nothing to do with that. All it does is require a public hearing. It doesn't matter if the planning board says, we don't like it. We still have to put it on the warrant.
Let me be more clear.
It's just a public hearing process to make sure that people get to hear about it before they vote on
You
it.
can both state,
I
both boards can
believe-
state up at town meeting and say that they don't
I believe
favor.
that in the specific circumstance of a zoning bylaw, that no citizen has the right to force it on the warrant, period. They have the right to force the process, which makes us review it and the planning board review it, us to wait to hear from the planning board, then make our decision to put it on the warrant. And that's why we need to reread those here, and that's what I asked, to bring those definitions here publicly so we can deliberate on them, because I believe there's interpretation within these. And I thought that our takeaway last time was that they have absolutely no right to force any zoning bylaw that affects the entire town. They could do it for their property, as ones do further, their individual property, rezone their property, reconsider their property. But no one has a right to force a zoning bylaw for the whole town onto the warrant with 10 signatures. They can force the process. That was my take.
Can you read the top right corner of that, sir? To yourself or whatever, just, the individual supposedly was submitting it on behalf of the planning board?
Well, the only thing is whether or not that they were doing it on behalf of the planning board or not.
Then the
They
planning
have more
board
than
would do
10,
it.
I mean.
No,
they
that's,
have-
we received it
Right.
as if it was done on behalf of, so the wording
So-
states he presented something on behalf of the planning board, and I'm not sure it's accurate.
No, because if the planning board was going to present it, they'd just tell us we'd like this in the warrant. If that was the planning board's view, they'd just
they
submit it
could-
to us.
Right,
They wouldn't
could.
go through this they don't need 10 signatures, they ask us to put it on the warrant.
Which,
Right. It's-
which just goes back to an audit trail means can it even go on the warrant if it was received incorrectly?
I wouldn't see, I don't know if it was that was really received incorrectly, because technically it's not even a planning board submission, it's a citizen's petition. So every person whose name is on that is technically the people who submitted that article, not necessarily that it was the planning board done by citizen's petition. They may have been
Okay.
the proponent, but I think technically it's the individuals listed.
So this is just saying we counted the signatures.
Yeah.
That's all this cover sheet's saying.
Right.
And so it was a town employee that was just making reference to how we received it.
Right, and I think
And
that.
based on their judgment, in other words, it wasn't a submittal by the individual saying, I'm doing this for this reason, okay?
And once again, the signatures need to be, or should be, clarified by the town clerk, because they're not handed out like a mini the petitions go out issued by the town clerk on formal documents, so people are signing an actual. We don't know if these signatures were
Well, it's-
generated and then the document was written after the fact, and we don't know that.
Well, I mean, that's her certification, right, on the front. They
That's the
received, they were
certification
counted.
saying that they've
Right.
received and counted all the
Right.
signatures.
And I always get frustrated with these petitions, because we have no way of knowing what they farmed out for signatures, really. Because they're not on a notarized document with this town seal.
Honestly,
what you're
my
saying.
bigger frustration is I have no way of counting this signature and saying that this letter was presented for the signature sheet, because it's not on the same page.
That's what I'm
But-
talking about.
Our town clerk said the process was followed. And it doesn't matter our interpretation, because legally that's,
No, that's what I'm saying by frustration. We discussed that
And-
before, and she said there is no sheet she hands out. She just verifies the signatures of those residents in town. That's all she verifies. She's verifying the signatures are authentic from people registered to vote. That's all she's verifying. Whereas something else like a recall process, she produces the signatory sheets affixed to the statement up front as one document that they're all signed. And that's, the process for this is very lax. But my interpretation of what had to be placed in the warrant for zoning bylaw, I thought specifically, in the instance of a zoning bylaw, somebody had the right to get 10 signatures and force the process, not to force the bylaw on the warrant.
The first step in the process is
So we
to
could verify that
refer
with
it
the
to-
state.
Right, the first step in the process is to refer it to the planning board for their recommendation.
Right, and we have a time frame to do that, and do we
We
not?
get 14 days from
We have
receipt.
14 days, so I'd like to wait before we send that, we go to our next meeting.
no.
I'd like to verify this with the state, that this process is being done right. There's a 14 days from receipt or 14 days from when we
14 days.
deliberate it?
14 days from receipt.
Okay, so 14 day, if we have maybe,
Which then gives,
I'm just saying.
they've already posted the public hearing.
I'd like to do our diligence.
Planning board already did.
I'd like to do our
So-
diligence before it's handed to them.
No, there's, also for the individual zoning changes, they've got a list of like 5 different bylaws they're doing on that public hearing now. The Higgins requesting to change some of their business to residential or vice versa, I forget, and R.J. McDonald's got something out there now like that.
But you see my point, the state would probably have an opinion on this as to what the proper process is with the zoning bylaw.
Over here. It's the
That we-
zoning act right here. The Board of Selectmen or City Council shall within 14 days of receipt of such zoning ordinance or bylaws submitted to the planning board for review.
And then what? There's a whole process this is defined there that we went through before. It left me with the impression that we did not have to place it on the warrant.
And the
First
planning board has
But they also
21
didn't
days
s-
to hold a public hearing and so many months to provide a
with-
report.
Right, but with that one, the one that was brought forward before, that wasn't even done through citizens petition. They didn't have the minimum, or they didn't have the required signatures for it. It was a specific
Yeah.
landowner just petitioning to ask that the bylaw be changed, not a specific zoning, or not the zoning of his parcel. So-
Right, he was asking to,
So
he
he
was
didn't have-
asking under the guise that since it affected his property, he was exempt from required to have the 100 signatures because it was about his property. But it wasn't actually about his property, it affected his property because it was about the entire zone. He wanted to redefine the allowances in the zone.
Right, which under the
Which
under the
wasn't
special
specific.
town meeting required 100 signatures.
Right, and he was trying to be exempt from that because it affected his property, whereas the Higgins request is specific about redefining their parcel. That doesn't
It's
need
like the
signatures.
same one they did at Loring Drive a couple years ago.
So in the Higgins case, if they wanted to wait to
Road.
special town meeting, they don't need any signatures to put this on the warrant because it's asking to rezone their parcel only. That's allowed to be placed on at their request. But to affect the zoning bylaw itself, it was a different process. And once again, my interpretation was all they could do was force it into the process, not force it on the warrant.
Do the individuals that are looking for their own still need the recommendation of planning board? like the
Yes.
Higgins and the
Yes.
RJ McDonald? Okay.
All zoning requirements require that a
Okay.
hearing be held and that a recommendation of the planning board be given.
I would like to make a motion that Articles 28 through
27, right? No, no, 27 is the actual.
34 all be referred to the planning board for the review and public hearing process required by Mass General Law.
Second that motion.
Further discussion?
Just a bureaucratic question. Can a member of the public see those proposed articles at this point?
Maybe.
Yes. They're all at this meeting, they're public documents.
So how do I do?
No, I mean, do we actually have full drafts of everything? Of all of these?
Right there, in front of you.
Okay.
They're all right there.
Oh, yeah, the ones that have signature you can, because they actually can't change them. There's no changing of whatever they submitted under signature.
Request copy?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Andrew, is that what you emailed me?
Yes.
For the meeting?
Yeah.
Is it exactly
We-
that?
Yep, it's all of the signatures, all the proposals. I
That whole bundle?
Yep.
Okay.
I didn't see those.
Came in later this afternoon, right?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
okay.
Well, that would be
You were
fine.
probably driving at the time it showed up.
Yeah, I stayed home and went through stuff as of this morning to make sure I was caught up in everything. And so
Yeah.
anything that comes, as I said
As-
before, anything that comes in after like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, forget about it. I'm work to
I was
here.
rushing to try to get the warrant together.
Yeah, and even
yesterday.
still, if it's that much in the morning, I don't have time to review it. I can't put off work that much and review that amount of detail.
Article 35 is our semi-annual request to change Chapter 80-4 of the general bylaws regarding playing ball in streets, parks, and other places. This time, the request is to change it to ball playing, throwing stones,
Or other missiles.
being no person shall play balls or throw stones or other missile-like objects in or upon any public street. End.
Did she make her 10 signatures on time?
They're right there.
Then it's going on.
Verified as of April 24th, certified on April 24th.
Now, the difference here is this is to affect the code, not a bylaw, a zoning bylaw. So this
Right,
would
this
be
is just a
placed,
general bylaw,
this
so
is placed on.
it's there. Article 36, citizens petition, resolution in support of changing the state flag and seal of Massachusetts. You can look into it, but it has a little bit to do with the Native Americans, and the symbol on the state flag actually shows, let me see if I can hit it a little quicker when I read through this. Okay, Miles Standish owned broadsword, reflected on the state flag, is kind of brandished above the head of a native man. Whereas the history of relations between Massachusetts and native nations who continue to live within the borders includes the forced internment of natives on Deer Island, where they died by the hundreds. The general concept of this is we weren't very nice to the Indians when we first showed up. And we have a flag that looks like we're still trying to dominate them. So somebody has made a petition to change it.
Why are we doing this at our town meeting?
It's statewide. If you read into it and you look at the submittal, it's a statewide push. Various individuals at each locale are trying to push it to get it on the ballot, so then it kind of pushes it up to the state. It's kind of the same way that marijuana got legalized. It started usually at the local level and got pushed up.
Citizens petition.
I think it was marijuana that went through that process. Something went through a local, medical marijuana maybe was the local.
My
Yes, yeah.
opinion is people are trying to hide from history, and it's
It's history. Yeah.
if you forget about history, you're doomed to repeat it. I think these things should stay, and I don't like it. They're pulling down statues and doing all.
Sometimes it's
you
better
name
to
it,
keep the
Yawkey
symbol and
Way
then point it out and explain it. Now, we went through all the articles. Sam, you have your thought. School.
Thank you. I want to remember what Craig was saying, Greg O'Sullivan was saying some time ago. that
Who knows? Is that too much?
There should be a way at every article to show the public how this particular article will affect the tax rate or the cost to the citizens, to give citizens an idea of whether they can afford all these expenses. That's number one. And you mentioned that, I remember, in a previous meeting, maybe last year, but I remember there was discussions to that effect. Number two is that as long as I've lived in this town, the school budget has been, no matter how large it is, has been 3 lines or few lines. When our departments come forward and ask for money, there's line items. And I would think that we, as a town, should expect the school to come through with at least an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper if they're going to be asking for $3 million and show us where the money's going.
I would like to say something about that real quick.
It-
No, it's a quick one, not a big story.
No, but I want to finish.
Okay.
Now, I remember specifically,
$6 million, by the way.
whatever the money, whatever the dollars is, I remember specifically there was a discussion about the Public Works Department getting a regular truck with a regular steel body and a stainless steel body. And there was discussions about the money. We gave Jason such a runaround for this little money. And conversely, when the school came in, we were dumbfounded. We didn't know what to do, and we just passed it. Now, so I guess what I'm asking for is, ask them for a full 8.5 by 11 page, and so we can understand what they're spending their money on, and we can inquire. And their warrant should not be in the middle of an assortment of warrants, because what happens is, when they get their money, they walk out and they could give a damn about this town. And I'm sure that you are going to concur with me that you've been in town a long time and you know what happens. And I think it's disrespectful, especially if we give them a ton of money, that they walk away because they get what they want. I think we should expect respect. Whether we give people little money or big money, we should expect respect from the educators. That's all I have to say. Thank you. And then you can respond however you guys can respond.
That's cool. And it was on topic that I wanted to respond. What I wanted to say is I have actually been talking to other town selectmen. And one of the things that is potentially coming out of the new Braintree request for all 5 towns having quarterly meetings, maybe semi-annual meetings, something to that effect, was just so that the Board of Selectmen can also play a greater role regionally in this school district, looking at how the school committee deals with their budget. Because for any one town that truly has a grievance about how the budget's presented, an individual town cannot get the school or the school committee to make a change. It takes all town board of selectmen to come together and say, we need to rewrite the agreement that mandates that the school committee and the school will present a budget in such a manner. And so discussions have started with that because we realize it's very opaque. It's not a transparent, this is how we plan to spend our money. And so, nor is it broken down to say, we're gonna even just say, we're gonna put 70% into this, 20%, we don't even have it broken down. It's just, here's your blank check, go spend it. It's a lump sum. We can't even say 55% of it's for labor, 30% for utilities, and the rest is for materials and equipment. It's not even that simply broke down. It's a flat line. You go back and all they have to answer to is the school committee, who can change their mind every week they want about where they want to spend that money. You can approve a budget and they can go back and then completely rewrite the budget. Because all you're giving them is a flat top dollar fee. We have no requirement in our agreement with the Quabbin Regional School District to have a greater breakdown for towns to vote on, so that you can actually put them in certain lanes of this is where you can spend your money. To do that, it requires all the towns to come together and go to the Quabbin Regional School District and say, we need to sit down and discuss our agreements. So that's the answer why we get one line item, they show up, it gets voted on, and they walk away. They're not required to be accountable, so they do not offer you something that would hold them accountable. They could do it without us making them do it, but they won't.
So what are the 5 towns doing to make them be more accountable? Because this is.
We're starting to talk, which apparently we
Beginning
hadn't been doing for
discussions.
years.
Beginning discussions, the fact is, the school has no control over the regional agreement, that's within the select boards. If these select boards decide to rewrite that agreement, it will be rewritten.
I don't know, the school committee may
It's-
have a voice, I gotta read it
don't
more.
think so. I think it's gotta go to the town meeting and get a certain percentage of vote. But I'm pretty sure that if the select boards want to rewrite it and demand different things from our school district, we can establish that. And then once again, that's run by the school committee. But we do set the guidelines for how they operate, and those guidelines have been fixed for years, for decades. And they need to be evaluated to see how we can rewrite it. You can't do too big a change. I mean, I don't want to look at all their line items like we do for town. They've got to triple our budget plus. It's going to be probably not exorbitantly more lines, but significantly more lines.
It's got more money.
They've-
They gave
but-
us a booklet.
Yeah, and I think they overdo that when they hand it to you on purpose to make it confusing, because the reality is that they have employees like the town does, they have buildings like the town does, they have utilities like we do, they have paper supplies and other things. So to make it more cumbersome, I'm sure they break down paper clips and pencils and erasers and make it way more than it has to be. But they could certainly get a definition working off our own town budget. We want certain categories and allow them a certain amount for school supplies in general. Utilities, teachers' salaries, professional salaries for people they bring in for something, administrative salaries. And we could get line items like that, and we
Okay.
should. But we're gonna have to discuss what kind of items we want, so we don't get that book, because we don't want that book.
Exactly, so,
It's impossible to go through and.
is that enough for now, and we can push it to another agenda item for another meeting? But I mean, did that help
As long as
the
we're
discussion?
As long as we're working towards this.
We are.
We are.
And,
And I'm not just trying to cut you off.
and we're also working towards the Seven Hills organization, because Charlie championed that when he was here.
Yes, he
Now
did.
we have nobody to champion that.
No?
Project.
We have nobody, huh?
No, wait a moment, I was saying that Charlie focused, because of his experiences with the state, on championing the issue with Seven Hills. Now, we don't have anybody because of their experience. Dylan doesn't have experience with that, you have some experience, you have some experience, but there's no specific person. So what I'm saying is that we can't allow that difficulty that's costing us money, significant money, to be forgotten. So I don't know how the select board is going to handle this, but I thought it was critical for me to bring up.
I will,
Okay, it's 10
if you
o'clock.
don't mind, I'm gonna take a quick thing on my quote-unquote selectmen's report, because it's about this.
Sure.
I was interviewed by Fox 25 News on Monday specifically about Seven Hills and DCF and the issues. May 14th, they will be airing this interview with multiple other people they interviewed, and I believe it actually includes a couple other towns that are having similar issues with facilities that are regulated or contracted by DCF. That's all I'm saying. Watch the interview, figure it out. but we haven't stopped. We're still working it. There's a variety of things going on.
Thank you.
Let's move on and do all these quick ones. Wage authorization, Jared Markowski.
Okay, well, thank you very much,
Good night.
ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you, Tom. Yes. Thank you, Sam. You can stick around if you want, but these are,
And Andrew? Keep up the good work.
Right.
do I have a motion?
I see fire
Oh,
chief
right, I
on
got
there,
you.
so
You
I'll
can't.
abstain.
Tom?
Do you want to make that motion? Do you comfortable with it? You have questions?
This
Yeah,
is-
I move to accept this.
All right. Second the motion. Further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Clarification, it was Jared Markowski being hired as an on-call firefighter at $15.66 an hour. Is this the guy that came from another town? I was at the award ceremony. Is this the guy?
This is the new DPW guy.
That guy was,
This isn't the DPW position, though.
New. He
Okay.
currently works at DPW and now he's.
Okay.
that's not the new guy you met
Thank you.
at the meeting, no.
No, he had presented someone that had come on board that he was
Right,
like,
from a different town, it was an older guy, he's close to my age. He's-
okay, thank you. You know what I'm talking about.
I do, it wasn't him, not him.
Okay.
I
So
don't think
he's
I've met this one
done.
yet.
Is there anything else here that? Okay, license renewal for Camp Coldbrook alcohol license. This is an on-premises license. All of the taxes paid up to date?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why I got held an additional meeting. We had to make
Water
sure.
bills?
And water
so-
bill, more importantly.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
That was the specific one that was being held.
That's what it always
I was
is.
gonna say, if I recall, they would never pay the bill until it was time to renew the license, and then it's like, oh,
In that
I made
case,
sure we held it a little bit. so-
I'll make a motion to approve the alcohol beverage license for Colebrook RV Resort LLC.
I'll second that.
further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Labor Council is requesting to extend the Labor Council contract but also increase it by $100 a year because
$100 a month.
Per month.
a month,
12.
I'm sorry, $100 a month because of the potential with the fire department that now has 4 members that have unionized because they are full-time positions.
3 members.
3 members?
Yeah.
Okay. Considering from my position, I think we're getting a fairly reasonable, or even to our benefit, you're never gonna get a better price than this for Labor Council retainer for the costs. I think this puts us at about 600 a month.
Yes.
$750.
No, I'm sorry.
750? Oh, it went
Right,
from 650 to 750?
But my
I
thought is this.
misread it.
Do we use them 3 hours every month?
Do we use, well, especially during.
Not on average, 3 hours every month. If we, once we use them beyond that, we're gonna pay $250 an hour anyways, so.
Have we ever been charged?
We can charge more.
Never gone beyond it?
No.
Oh, then, all right, that's fine then.
Yeah, that's,
I
because
know
I'm
we
with you,
use
you're
my-
right.
I use it a lot.
I mean, even
But
if
he
we-
hasn't appeared to nickel and dime us,
If we've
I
never
guess
been
is what I'm
charged more,
saying.
that means he's averaging out his times on it, because clearly there's some months we've gone well beyond 3
Yeah, I was
hours
gonna
of
say,
time.
with
Oh,
all the
yeah.
police union negotiation
Yeah.
stuff, we never received any.
I was
additional.
just curious, if we're paying him the extra anyways, I don't know why you bother, but if he's not charging that, that's why, I make a motion
Yeah.
to accept this, the new contract with a $100 a month increase.
Second that.
Any further discussion, questions? Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. And I think right now, he also falls under the separate line item of general counsel, so it's not the it's not Jim Baird's line item, it's the other one where we just pay for all other legal services out of.
We just bumped the column $1,200 on you.
Oh, actually, no, we already had surplus in there.
All right.
We just gotta bite the bullet and not use another third-party lawyer for other reasons if we can help it. We'll leave that up to randomness. What do we got here? Can you, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to jump to the last item, discussion on animals in
Sure.
public buildings. Where did this come from? What's the discussion?
That's-
I'm okay with it being here, I just didn't know where it came from.
That's me. I've had a lot of complaints from probably 6 or 7 different people over the last couple of years, several complaints from each, specifically about the dog that's in the building inspector's office in a little cage area. They've complained that it has accidents in there sometimes, and people that are allergic to dogs don't like it being in the building. And I got to agree. I don't know any of the towns that I've gone to that there's dogs in public buildings on a regular basis. It's not a service dog. It's not a licensed or registered vetted dog, and it shouldn't be in our town building. I think I think it's unprofessional. I think it makes our town look like a little hick town. We have a dog yipping in a public building inside a gate. It just don't think it belongs there. And I've tried asking, Andrew to look into it and what he might do, but there's nothing he can do legally because we've made no rule of policy on it. And just as before they made the policy of no animals in town cars. And that's just specific because they didn't want the fire chief having his dog go every place in fire calls. That was very specific because it only affected one person in town. But this is a general policy. It's not like everyone rode in a fire chief car and was offended by a dog being there, but there are people that are offended by the dog being in the building. There are people that have legitimate allergies to dog, and that's just the people that work in town that have complained about it. Who knows how many people in the public come in here that have an issue or have an allergy issue because there's dogs in here. And I think we should make a policy that we don't have, any animals in our public buildings, unless the service dogs are required to be here. That's why I asked to put it on here so we could discuss it as a
Yep.
board. It's, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, and it represents, thoughts of other people in town, and more specific in this case, people that work within the town that have dealings in the building. But I think in general, it's I've talked to other people outside of town to get their opinion. They've never heard of dogs being allowed in their offices, and most people, half the people would love it to have their puppy at work, and other people say, "Oh, I'm allergic to dogs. I wouldn't want to be near them." I'm allergic to cats, not dogs, but cats would. If there was a cat in this building on a regular basis, I'd be having an issue with it every time I walk in here, and that shouldn't be in a public building.
Yeah. Does fall under finance administration as the administration side of rules and regs?
Yep.
Okay.
Opinions, gentlemen? I'd love
No,
to have other
I'll
input,
be
but what
honest,
do you think?
I generally agree with you. One, the general maintenance of the facility. Depends on how often, whatever's going on that floor. Two, certain level of just paying attention to the distraction or the time lost, spending time with the pet versus doing your job. It's hard to manage, it's hard to verify, not questioning the individual. I'm saying you can't prove it because most everybody else is working and not paying attention if the other person is working or playing. My experience, the person works. They put in their time, they make it. I'm not questioning that because I never hear enough to be able to speak to that. But I do know that any animal I've had to bring somewhere takes away my focus from what else I'm doing. So I don't think it's a positive work environment to have that. And I agree, you never know who's allergic. You never know, and we serve the public, so we have to plan for, we're gonna come across someone that's allergic. We're gonna come across someone that has fear of dogs. we're gonna come across anything like that where it's, I don't believe it's the right thing to be bringing your dogs into a municipal work environment that's an administrative building. Kind of like Greg said, outside of properly certified service dogs, other things like that, I think maybe there's a certain way to do it, but even then, just because you can bring it in, we probably need to look at certain levels of, okay, it's in, and now what do you do with it? How do you keep the area clean? How do you make sure that you're not spreading? What are we doing to address that? Because it becomes a complex mess. And if at all possible, I'd rather avoid the complex mess, because I know when I first started, there were issues between personnel. And animals can become an issue between working personnel. And so, in general, I just don't see a lot of positive to saying, yeah, go ahead and bring your dogs in. And I can't see how you can say let one in and then now get stuck arbitrarily deciding when one dog versus another dog is appropriate.
And conversely, the policy of not allowing dogs in town vehicles, I would like to reverse that policy. I think that if we are considering a police dog, we're gonna get into some point that we have to make exceptions and modify it anyways, and quite frankly, if Brianna decided she wanted to bring her dog around when she does inspections, I don't care. It's in
I
her-
do.
It's in her car.
It's the
with her.
same thing as the carpet up there.
Oh, for
You
the
bring a
car.
dog in, now
That's true.
we got
That's true.
maintenance of the vehicle we
That's
gotta
true.
deal
That's
with.
true, that's that.
If it's a town vehicle, now,
And then
if
she's
someone's
going to-
using their personal vehicle, I'm not gonna
Well, that's-
say just because it's work.
Right, and, you know, the other thing is if they're bringing it to job sites or something, it might not be appropriate.
Yeah.
So all right, but the policy in general we just have to make a provision, if and when we get to a police dog, we have to make sure we make a provision to allow for that. Because that's a stupid little thing that's gonna come back and bite us in the butt if it's not allowed for at least.
A police dog is not a dog, it's an employee now.
Yeah, true.
It has an identity,
Aren't they a classified service dog?
they're a police officer.
Yeah, police officer, actually, yeah.
I mean, so in a way, I guess you could say, that's not a dog, it's a police officer.
You can
But
make-
I agree, we
you can
should
just
just
say
make sure we have some
to
language
exclude-
in however
to
we wanna
exclude
develop this policy.
Search, rescue, and, you know, service dogs of any nature.
What's your thoughts?
I mean, you all covered all the bases on that. I can't see why there would be a good reason to have any animal in a municipal vehicle or a building. Seems unprofessional, counterproductive.
And I would think we maybe put this into effect.
No, you're not on the board, I don't care what you think.
Really?
You can represent the general public. I am glad you can at least smile at me and know that that sarcasm is just, it's after 10. Okay.
Never.
We need to start to draft up a paragraph or two to put into the policy about animals are not allowed at work
In a time frame
unless we have the right legal reasons why we can't tell you not to.
And maybe
I
enforcing.
mean, outside of Mass General Law saying we have to let that dog in, that's the reason.
And I'd like to set enforcement of as of July 1st, next fiscal year, because also, obviously, she's gonna need to make arrangements and figure out what she's
Work
gonna
through
do. Care for, in a kennel at home, or someone else, she's gonna have to come up with something, she needs some time to do that as well, but, so I
If
don't
you
wanna
think
turn around and say the next day.
including in there some weird alternative, like
In a kennel.
we might
But still,
listen.
I don't know.
No, I'm
Still
not even
dander.
gonna go there.
Still a dander, it's still. a
I don't
nose, it's
know
still a
what the
distraction.
alternative could be, but if someone could come up with something where they could sit there in front of the board and explain it, and we can actually say that resolves all our concerns.
'Cause it still would be, yeah.
I can't imagine it,
Yeah.
but I don't wanna say that they can't propose something that might actually answer that for me. So I'm okay if there's that, except for appeal to the Board of Selectmen or whatever, and then we can leave it that vague, like, well, I don't want it that vague. I want it to still say there's gotta be a reason where you're addressing all our concerns.
Just wondering for, like if it was an emotional support animal, something
Not
like
a-
that.
It's gotta have
The
that
state
third-party
addresses that.
sanction, some certificate that proves it.
The
Okay.
state,
I'm just saying, if there was some, not talking like in terms of a,
We're saying registered service dog, and the state defines those.
I hear you.
And that partially that get defined.
We
'cause
want to be
everybody
more
bringing their
stringent than
emotional
the
supports in
TSA,
airplanes.
letting
Well,
parrots
that's what I
on the
say.
airplane.
Well, the TSA is getting more stringent.
So
on it as
we
well.
gotta look to see how stringent we're legally allowed to be versus just being a policy. Because I don't know what those limits are on service dogs versus emotional support. I don't know what the rules are.
Well, I know that if you would talk about bringing them into a grocery store,
That actually might be
You
something
can't do it
Fred
unless
would
it's a
be
service
better
dog.
able to answer, huh?
yeah. I should
Because
probably
it
ask
kind
that.
of overlaps on personnel rights.
yeah. Well, when it's health issues, restaurants and grocery stores and food service, you're not allowed pets
Taking
unless they're a
this
service dog.
idea that we just talked about
They're-
and running it by our labor council, Fred, because it does affect personnel rights, their
Not
rights
unless it's
as
a registered
an
service dog.
employee.
Yeah.
And we just need to make
People-
sure we're not
I know
infringing on
somebody
those.
I know.
who has one, and she's got the service dog.
Well, there's different things. To be a registered service dog, they undergo quite a bit of training.
I would like to do this, if you
Specifically
don't
licensed
mind.
people. In service dogs, you get a certification online by
Can
filling
we
out a paper.
table the health and safety plan?
Yeah,
I know it's pretty much, it is what it is. I'm sorry.
That's fine, you know, I should really just look at what I've sent you guys online and
Okay.
send digital comments.
Deputy Chief, is that something we need to deal tonight?
No, I thought he was gonna be here, but if he's not, it's,
Okay, good. I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Are we closed the warrant? Are we closing it tonight or a different night, or?
We're
What night are we closing it?
We're gonna come back in 2 weeks, the 20th.
I forget that, I didn't.
And that'll be that final go to
I
please
didn't-
post these
I
warrants.
didn't recall the date we'd set to close it.
What are those?
This is the meeting minutes that was approved.
He signs.
That's the alcohol.
That's us
That's
signs.
the,
You sign, right?
The contract
The
with the lawyer.
contract, and then the wage for Jared.
Oh, that's me.
So the alcohol, we all sign, and that's it, right?
And
you sign the
You
others?
guys have to sign.
Yeah, actually, it might be just the
Might be
alcohol
just
you
you.
gotta do
I think it's just the alcohol we sign, and you sign everything else, and he signs the.
twice.
We'll
get them all right. All right. Greg,
Recycling and
these
solid
two
waste.
post-it notes have a signature page that you've gotta sign, so you've gotta sign twice in the package.
I can handle
And-
two, and up front.
I would do the front anyway, just in case.
5, 6, 19?
Yes.
Since we voted on it, you guys are okay with me
So we're supposed to sign the licensing authority?
signing this
whole page
contract,
is
right?
blank?
Because we actually
Yes,
voted,
because that's
so.
going back to the state to tell them that we didn't deny any.
Those are gonna be the same.
Yes, they will. Yep.
See, I think there's
It's
two.
a single copy?
Failure to renew and then denial.
If you need another
Basically just saying that
original
nobody-
copy, let
Just
me
checking
know.
why the pages are
Oh,
blank.
there it is.
Yeah.
No, that's the one I signed. That's the one I didn't sign.
Oh, I saw the signature. I'll take.
All right. That's about what I expected on that.
Yes.
10:30, so we're pretty close.
Still have no idea what the Bruin store is.
Yeah, I don't need to sign it.
Yeah, I forgot.
I could check it if I wasn't on.
I got one text from my
So,
brother-in-law that
City
said,
of Worcester.
woohoo, so, I know at least got one goal.
Is he a
How
Bruins
many-
fan?
how many times-
Yeah.
I
I
signed
have to
something.
ask, 'cause we
like-
get Tom
I'm at
George,
that level
and
where
he's
like
always
everything
on
I sign,
Canadian
like,
team.
I recommend, and it goes to my boss who recommends, who goes to his boss to actually find.
Well, too many
me to do
glitches, like I
something.
said, I just wanna,
So,
Want to just take the formal vote to close?
I find that the recommended,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Call for vote?
aye,
Aye.
close it up.
So anyway. I found